Welcome to another episode of Money Majlis, where we explored the people shaping our world, challenging convention, and leading transformation across sectors. I'm your host, Shubho Sarkar, and today we feature Zain Verjee, Canadian-Kenyan journalist, entrepreneur, global communicator, and the founder of theZVG. Formerly a CNN anchor and a fearless correspondent, Zain's journey spans continents and industries, from broadcasting major world events to reshaping the narrative on Africa and creative entrepreneurship in media. She's a pioneer at the intersection of journalism, leadership, AI ethics, and the creative economy, with a personal story as compelling as a global mission. But first, a message from my sponsors.
Money Majlis is proudly supported by aKoma, the premier crypto-as-a-service provider, now building in partnership with the top financial institutions in the Middle East. Discover more at aKomanow.com.
Money Majlis is brought to you by E&, a global technology group.
Money Majlis is brought to you by Intellect Design Arena, driving digital adoption in banking and insurance.
Money Majlis is brought to you by Live Digital Bank, powered by Emirates NBD. Trust and innovation combined.
Money Majlis is brought to you by Network International, the leading digital payments technology company in the Middle East and Africa.
It's Thursday, the 24th of October. I'm Zain Verjee. This is CNN News Center live from London. Making news today. First France, now Germany. A second U.S. ambassador in Europe's been called in to explain allegations of spying by America's National Security Agency. But in the case of Germany, it goes right to the top. Its government alleges that U.S. spies have been eavesdropping on the cell phone calls of Chancellor Angela Merkel.
In a time when media is evolving faster than ever, influenced by AI, politics, and economic shifts, our guest today brings unparalleled insights from a journey as a former CNN anchor to founding media ventures focused on Africa and beyond. Zain Verjee is a journalist whose career is as inspirational as it is multifaceted. Born in Nairobi, educated in Montreal and Oxford, Zain began as a radio DJ before quickly rising in television news, reporting on the 1998 Nairobi U.S. Embassy bombing and later joining CNN in the year 2000. As State Department correspondent, she covered Condoleezza Rice globally and reported pivotal moments, including the fall of Muammar Gaddafi and the Korean DMZ crisis, winning awards for her coverage. Zain anchored CNN's World One and Your World Today, navigating complex international affairs with insight and empathy. After 14 years at CNN, Zain pivoted to entrepreneurship, founding the Zain Verjee Group, amplifying African stories and the continent's creative heartbeat to global audiences. Her ventures, including aKoma Media and Amplify, build networks for Africa's creative economy, and a collaboration with entities like Bloomberg, WHO, and the UN reflects a deep commitment to social impact and innovation. As an executive fellow at Harvard's Tech for All Lab, she works on inclusive narratives for Africa, integrating AI and ethics into media. Her candid reflections on reinvention, resilience, and diversity, coupled with the ongoing advocacy for gender parity and authentic leadership, make her a trusted global voice in complex times. Zain, welcome to Money Majlis. Tell me, how would you describe Africa in one word?
Unstoppable.
Excellent. And how are you doing today?
I am excited to talk to you. Thank you for that really warm and wonderful introduction. As you were speaking, I had these fleeting images in my mind of all of those moments of my career and how I felt at the time I was doing it. And also you offered a breath for me to step back and look at the evolution of a professional and an individual over time.
And today, Zain, we are so excited to talk to you about all those moments and all those stories that have shaped you as a professional and as a person. Zain, let me start with your journey at the beginning. You began your broadcasting journey in Kenya at age 22, hosting Love Lines on 98.4 Capital FM and giving love advice. How interesting is that?
Well, first of all, let me say, there are very few people that ever ask me about that, because to many around the world, my career starts at CNN. So it's not known that I was a radio DJ hosting the Love Show. That was probably the most fun part of my career at the very beginning, where I actually discovered I could talk with a microphone. It was really an accidental way of falling into radio journalism and radio hosting. The beginning of that phase of my career started as a traffic and travel reporter. So at Capital FM Radio, which was very new and at the time very popular in Kenya because there was no other private radio station that had free speech. Even though there wasn't news, we were talking. That was a big deal. And my job was to say, we have traffic on this road, avoid that road because of this accident. And one day I got a call saying that the host of the Love Show was taking an early maternity leave. And would I like to stand in? And I said, yeah, sure, of course, that sounds like fun. And over the years, I ultimately stayed in radio, gave a lot of very bad love advice as a 22-year-old to people and their romantic problems. I, of course, had the solution. And then we would play music. And that was from 11 p.m. till 1 o'clock in the morning. And my father, a huge champion of what I was doing, as well as my mother. But my dad would listen and then pick me up at 1:30 in the morning at a radio station in downtown. So that was really the genesis of the beginning of a sliver of an understanding that I could speak on a microphone. I was clear and I wasn't shy.
And Zain, how did that early radio experience shape your transition to hard news and journalism, especially after witnessing the 1998 U.S. Embassy bombing in Nairobi from the studio, I believe?
That follows a trajectory of a few years at the radio station where after I destroyed people's relationships on the Love Show, I was then moved off to do the mid-morning show. And that was from 10 to 1 p.m. What occurred on August the 7th, that particular year, 1998, the embassy bombings happened. And it was outside my window at Lonro House, and I was on the air. I heard a massive explosion. The building shook, and I, as well as others in the studio, thought it was an earthquake. Lonro House, our studio was on the 19th floor, so we started swaying. And I remember thinking, how am I going to run down the staircase if this is an earthquake? I mean, we have to go. But then over the window, my eye caught the dark plume of black smoke outside the studio. And again, it rose immediately to these many stories. And when I looked out, there was utter devastation. At that time, the BBC World Service had hosted their transponder at Capital FM Radio. So all the executives were walking in and out of that office, and they heard me occasionally on the air. And then they ultimately asked me, we would want a local Kenyan to report on what's going on. And we would love you to be able to do long radio documentaries with us and work with the people at Bush House. And that's what I did. So that's how I transitioned to hard news, where I realized there's more than music and more than Lauryn Hill and Shaggy and all these exciting people at the time who were coming through and coming to this radio station. And suddenly my eyes were opened to hardcore, very difficult politics of that moment.
Now, Zain, early in your career, you juggled multiple roles. You did Capital FM in the morning, BBC in the afternoon, KTN at night. What drove that relentless work ethic, and how did it prepare you for the demands of global journalism?
I have a motivation to learn. I'm really driven by my curiosity. I'm not afraid of hard work, and I'm not afraid to fail. The work ethic, I think, is grounded in three things. One, my own personality. The second, and more importantly, is grounded in the way that I was brought up at home with my mum, dad, and my brother Irfan. My parents and grandparents had always instilled in us the value of just hard work and adhering to ethics and the principles of what constitutes excellence. And they were happy if whatever we were doing in our lives, as long as we did the very best we could. And then the third piece, and they were very encouraging. The last element I would add, I think, is also grounded in kind of like our Islamic attitude and ethic of our faith, which is you've got certain gifts from, God, or you have certain opportunities in life, and it's actually, you have to strive to make the most of what you have and demonstrate some empathy, curiosity and learning, always a lifelong behavior of learning, and then building bridges with other cultures and other parts of the world, and building relationships to foster deeper understanding and greater global harmony. And so I think I'm motivated by all of these three things, but my mom and dad really did push and encourage us.
And I see that can-do attitude also in Irfan, who is your brother and with who I actually work at IBM. So that's interesting to see the same attitude coming through.
It's great. It's really great that you know my brother, because you'll see a piece of each other reflected in what both of us actually.
Absolutely. Tell me, Zain, what lessons from your days in Kenyan media stayed with you as you moved on to CNN and international stage?
I think one of the most important lessons I learned while I was in Kenya is that you never underestimate the champions that you have around you. We all have our advocates, and there are people that help us along the way. And in Nairobi, there were a handful of people outside of my immediate family that championed me, and they believed in me. And I would turn to them for counsel, and they gave it generously. So I think that has been such an important lesson for me, that advocating for other people throughout my career and even now is a really important thing to do, because it can transform someone's life, because you have a little bit of wisdom, you have a little bit of experience, and you have some good relationships. At CNN, I think one other key lesson from Kenya on that journey that I learned was just resilience and persistence. I mean, CNN rejected me about 10 times before they hired me.
Before you financed your own screen test, I believe. Is that right? And winning the job.
Yes, that's right. Capital FM was giving me a salary, and I was saving it. It was in Kenya shillings, which in dollars at the time was not much. And whatever I was earning, I was saving. And ultimately, after the 10th time, and the woman I was emailing cracked and said, well, fine, if you want to come, you can come. I'll give you a screen test, but you fund yourself. And when you come, I'm not hiring you, and then you can leave. Okay. But just, you come in on your own dime. And I remember taking all my money in the bank, and it bought me one economy class ticket to Atlanta and a hotel room at the Marriott Marquis Hotel near CNN. And I remember the night before I left, I was crying. I started crying, and I was telling my mom, what am I doing? I'm using all my money. They've explicitly said, we're not hiring you. Like, why am I like this? And my mom was like, no, go for it. What's the worst that can happen? You fail, then fine. Okay. But you tried. That was the important thing. And so that I got on the plane the next day, and I was on this adventure that was about to happen that I never anticipated in a million years that it would actually happen.
And was the screen test a cakewalk, or was it tough for you?
I'm an over-preparer. And so I anticipated it would be tough. And there were elements of it that were tough, but I was prepared. And I also applied common sense. So, for example, I was asked to take a couple of news wires, like Reuters and AP. It was the same story, write a story based on these two wires. So then you have to think, okay, what's the lead? What's the context? What's the structure of this? And make it 40 seconds. And so I did that. I found that hard. It's not easy to synthesize like that, especially when you're not disciplined in their kind of writing style, but I did that. Then there was a general knowledge quiz, which was really easy because you know how Americans tend to know nothing about the rest of the world, but we know everything about it.
Yeah.
So I was like, what kind of questions are these? So those were easy peasy. What was also fine was reading teleprompter.
Yeah.
And just kind of anchoring. And I'll tell you what should have been the hardest was the easiest for me, because as sometimes the teleprompter would roll, the person that was testing me, Rena Golden, she would force the teleprompter to fail, and all of a sudden the screen would go black and I only had hard copy next to me.
Yeah.
But because everything was constantly failing at our local television channel at KTN, teleprompters would fail a lot. And so it was very easy for me and my colleagues in Nairobi at the time, at KTN, Jorge Maura and Catherine Kasavuli, we were all learning like very fast how to pick up when something failed to pick up. So the fact that I was in a local context actually served me at CNN, and I completed that what should have been hard very easily. And then there were some questions like ask, you're interviewing a president or a plane has crashed. Now what? What do you say? What do you do? And so that's what it constituted.
How interesting. How interesting. You joined CNN, Zain, at age 25 and reported on major world events. Can you remember what moment at CNN challenged you the most? And how did it shape your worldview?
I think I would say I had like 3 moments, okay? I would say the first was I was hired as a writer-producer before I was ever anchoring. And they told me, we're going to hire you on the spot. We like your aggression and your persistence. You look good on camera, you sound good, but you have no clue what you're doing. The first very challenging thing for me was doing an overnight shift and writing news copy. And I would get shouted at all the time by the overnight editors, and I would go home crying, and I was trying to learn how to drive, and I would be like, I want to come home. These people are awful. So I found that really hard. And they were not easy on me. They were not, we've become great friends, but that toughness was really good for me. Okay. It really forced me not to coast and to focus and be disciplined. The second was when they finally put me on the air on a weekend so they could control it. I found it very difficult to understand the Northern Ireland story, and I was terrified of breaking news. And I was like, what's going to happen if it's on Northern Ireland? And I don't understand, what are these Protestants and the IRA and what? Like, it was much more, it was more complex. I found that very hard. And lastly, when I ultimately left the anchor desk and became a correspondent, for the 3 years I covered the State Department, I was very challenged because there's no teleprompter, because now you're it. So in all of those instances, there were new experiences. I had a desire to learn and do my best. And CNN was really great in just, kind of like closing ranks around their anchors and trying to make them look as best as they possibly could. So I had a lot of help and a lot of great support.
And do you remember what was the most challenging story you covered during your tenure at CNN?
Yeah, it was 9/11 was one. I just joined CNN. And so observing how a network suddenly kicks into year. That I would say was challenging, but I wasn't so much a frontline participant in that story because I was too new.
Yeah.
I think a very hard story was I'd gone to Pakistan to interview Benazir Bhutto. No, she was in Dubai actually. I was in Pakistan and I'd gone to Dubai to interview her, and then she decided that she would go back to Pakistan. And as you know, she was ultimately killed. At that return, I found that very hard. Somebody that I'd built a relationship with, someone I admired, was killed in this way, and then I had to report it. Actually, another one when there was a terror attack in Kenya, and a mall, literally like 10 minutes from here, Westgate Mall, was attacked by terrorists. CNN sent me to cover it, so I was at home covering a terror siege, and people were being murdered. And most of those people are people that we know, shops that we know. It's in an affluent, middle-class Kenyan, Indian expat area. And that was very, very difficult to be neutral. Even my aunt and my uncle were in there. So it was a challenge to be a journalist and be a person.
So, Zain, what does it take? And I always wondered this. What does it take to report under such high pressure and personal risk? Where do you leave your personal, feelings and get into the story as a journalist?
I think it's part training and part self-discipline. I think for me, I separate for covering a story and it's difficult. It's just, you really get involved in, I have to do a great job here because people are counting on me to tell the truth or tell a particular point of view or be a witness to something significant that's happening. So there's a feeling of the magnitude of the moment that you're in. Okay. And it's so all consuming, particularly if there's like street riots or fighting or shooting or just, a flood, or it's you're immersed in this. And so it's almost as though your entire being is obsessed with what you're doing, that there's really not much room to even be thinking of much else in many of those instances in my experience. And the news cycle is so relentless, like you just don't get a break to stop, which is why journalists are kind of a particular kind of a character, an ilk. They tend to be intense, obsessive, a little bit of obsessive compulsive, driven by an ideology and the ability to compartmentalize. However, I would say that we're also a human being, and I think that some of the best stories I've covered has also been when I've demonstrated empathy and when I have been able to connect not only with the subject but with an audience. And I think it's okay to give yourself permission to be that, because you're witnessing often terrible things and hearing very difficult stories. So for me to remain, kind of just stern and mute at some of these very difficult moments is not who I am. And it took me a while to attain a level of authenticity and comfort with who I was on the air and off the air, and then that becomes the same person. Because otherwise, when every young female journalist starts in a television career, we all want to be Christiana Amanpour.
Correct.
And everyone wants to emulate that, right? And you're trying to be someone you think you should be, or you think you need to demonstrate a behavior because everyone is expecting that. And I realized that, that it took me 10, 12 years to feel, okay, I can be me on the air. And so it was really an evolution of understanding who you are and how you want to communicate stories to people.
And how difficult is it to separate your on-air personality from your off-air personality, right? When you come home and you meet family, friends, is it difficult to switch off?
Yeah. For me, I think the on-air personality is who I am, but just a little bit more controlled, right? When I'm at home, I'm a consistent person, but I can get crazy. I can have swings of emotions like anyone else. But by and large, if the person that you meet on air is the same kind of a person that you're meeting now or in a physical form.
And how do you control emotions in a high stakes interview? Unlike the one in 2007, you had this famous conversation with Condoleezza Rice on Palestinian leadership, right? When you have these conversations, which are very high stakes, you got to have control over how you say what you say, right? Is that difficult?
It's not difficult to have control of what you want to say and how you want to deliver it. What's difficult is, the other side is either not quite honest or parsing words because they don't want to make news or using you to get a message out. And so it's really a little bit cat and mouse-ish because you need each other. I was part of Condoleezza Rice's press corps when she traveled internationally. We would travel from Andrews on her plane. We would travel around the world. We'd be the embassy, the motor. We were her team. And when we were back in the US, right, it was almost a more adversarial type of relationship, and the goal was to break news over everybody else. And so so you're always prepared in a certain way to receive some antagonism, some pushback, some answer that you can't interrupt, and the clock is ticking, and you have to decide what fight are you going to pick. And so it was actually more like chess, not checkers, doing those kinds of interviews.
I was in Stanford a few years back when Condoleezza Rice came and did a session on stage and taking questions about politics and what's going on in the world. And she's amazing. She speaks very well and very, very, very erudite, of course. Zain, you once said that journalism means, quote, comforting the afflicted and afflicting the comfortable, unquote. I found that very interesting. How did that ethos shape your career in journalism?
I think it was really a core driving force because there's a sense of responsibility on the one hand. You're the fourth estate, right? You can't just be a wallflower and look good on TV. Like there's a weight and a responsibility to approaching the subject that you're covering for the audience. And so I felt very much driven by that. At the same time, it's such a privilege to be there on behalf of people, and in scenarios where I was confronted with real people demonstrating real human emotion who are in real positions of suffering, and I'm, on the secretary's plane or in business, and I'm fine. I go back home, I'm fine. I found that very jarring. And so in moments of being able to comfort the afflicted either directly or in a scenario that was just so awful, but with tone and delivery and compassion and some kind of an empathy that was natural and authentic, I always think is important. And so it's about balancing these two things, but also being true to yourself. And every news organization has certain standards and practices as well. So you can't just, go rogue and, do crazy things. You can't, you have to adhere by a certain code and a certain company ethic as well. And so it's a question of balancing all of these elements and always remaining true to the audience and delivering, what's best, and not letting leaders get away with just, and then that's it. And then, you have a good photo opportunity. So I think that's the core of how I see things.
Now, after 14 years at CNN, you wrote, and I quote, "I had flatlined. There was no more growth. I needed inspiration," unquote. Tell me, what does career reinvention require? And what advice would you give those facing similar crossroads?
Career reinvention is very tough, especially when you have operated at a very high level, or at any level, because if there's a fear element there. And with CNN, I was so attached to the three letters, and it had a lot of power, and it opened a lot of doors. And I had muscle because of that. And I had a huge infrastructure around me whose goal was to make me look good and keep me happy. And of course, there's ego. It's me on TV. And so, it's like, the transition was hard because you lose all of that. You are no longer associated with a large brand. You have self-doubt. You are not sure who you are anymore in the world and how will you navigate this. The other challenge is that something like CNN and perhaps in other people's profession, I was such a technocrat. I had a very, very narrow skill set, an extremely professional one, but it's very narrow. And it's hard to apply something so narrow and deep to lots of different things around the world because there's only one kind of it at that level. So I think it's extremely difficult. I think that one shouldn't put so much pressure on oneself to immediately know what you're doing next, because it's hard to make that shift. I think it's important to open yourself up to more conversations and be open to new ideas. I think that having a small cadre of believers of you when you have self-doubt around is important. And I think it's important to try things and know that you're probably going to fail or not be happy and be okay with that. And not put so much pressure on yourself to have this great narrative about yourself. Hey, I'm Zain, I left CNN and now I'm doing this. I'm so happy. This is so great. I found that very difficult, very, very difficult to go, okay, what am I doing? Where's my stuff? Who's got my stuff? And so you're doing everything, and going back to some basics. And there's almost a disconnect between who you are, who you were, who everyone thinks you are, and who you want to be. And there's a big gray mush in the middle of it, and it takes a little bit of time to untangle. So headline is, be gentle on yourself. You don't have to deliver the next day.
Okay, and you delivered so well for the last so many years in a new career, right?
I've had many failures. It looks good outside. Oh, she's doing all these things. But I've really struggled. I built aKoma Media with a co-founder, Chidi Afulezi, and the company failed. I picked the wrong business model. We built the wrong platform. We were 10 years too early. And my ego drove me to build that company because I put all my money into that company and no one else would.
aKoma was a digital platform for African storytelling, correct?
Yes, exactly. That's right. So the idea there was Africa should tell its own stories. Africans are hugely talented. We're fed up of being covered by the West, CNN, and we should be able to tell it. And not only should we be able to tell our stories, we should make money on telling our stories. It shouldn't just be horror and poverty and war and dictatorship and bad elections and tribalism. That shouldn't be the only stuff that sells. So the company was also designed to build markets that valued content creation in Africa. And that was the company that I was trying to build with Chidi, and that failed. For the reasons I articulated. And I lost all the money I had at CNN. I'd invested in that company because I thought that I could do it. It was a mistake. And I let my ego and overconfidence build that. And I was just, like I said, I was a technocrat there in 2014. I knew how to do one thing well. And suddenly I had to know finance. I had to know how to do pitches, decks, product, technology, and it by myself with Chidi, but it became very difficult. And we had some great wins, but ultimately we wound the company down.
But since then you pivoted, right? As founder and CEO of theZVG since 2018, I believe. You revolutionized media advisory in emerging markets. I mean, can you discuss projects like the Qatar Economic Forum that you produce as executive producer and its impact on economic dialogues?
What I think ZVG has done well is the media advisory piece in emerging markets, especially in Africa. So everything that I do has a DNA of Africa. That's a little bit of a superpower myself and the people on my team have. And we have also another piece is we have, and in particular with my experiences, I have a level of cultural fluency and I can operate on multiple different levels. And so when Africa started to emerge in the world as the last frontier to invest and all these greenfield opportunities existed, I found myself not only understanding media strategy and content, but also having the knowledge, the cultural fluency and the credibility within the continent to start to advocate for certain editorial topics, individuals that I knew who aren't always on the global stage, but in all trajectories on the continent and in the diaspora, especially women. I knew where to pinpoint them, and they trusted and know me. And so when events like the Qatar Economic Forum with Bloomberg or Unstoppable Africa, which ZVG created along with the UN and the UN Global Compact, and one key African billionaire leader who we all admire on the continent, Strive Masiwa. When all of these events or the content requests come on my desk, we're able to pinpoint new ideas and new people and therefore craft new types of dialogue that haven't been had before, because you always put the usual suspects on the same big names and then you get the same dialogue. So I think that's been our superpower, Africa DNA, advocating for women leaders to be put on stage to articulate their world views and to put Africa on stage, not as we need aid, help, but we want to trade. We are confident in who we are and we have a lot to offer and we want to do business. So that was the narrative coming in. And I think it was really appreciated by Qatar, in New York at the UN, and in many other forums and environments, including Saudi Arabia, UAE, that I've worked in.
This is a good time for a commercial break. But before that, I want to remind my listeners to visit moneymajlis.com to redeem your $50 gift card for a charity of your choice. As you know, every listener of Money Majlis gets the opportunity in every episode to get a $50 gift card by just visiting my website. And also, every guest of Money Majlis gets a $1,000 gift card as a token of our gratitude. My guest today, Zain Verjee, has chosen to contribute her $1,000 Money Majlis gift card to the Global Fund for Women. As a listener, you can choose to redeem your gift card for the same cause or any of the other 5 causes on my website, moneymajlis.com. See you soon after this commercial break.
The financial world is changing fast. Institutions need to meet the growing client demand for crypto financial services, but they need a battle-tested platform to build upon.
aKoma Now is a leading crypto financial services platform, powering incumbent institutions to launch crypto brokerage, payments, and remittance services for their clients, securely and at scale.
Be part of the transformation. Visit aKomanow.com today.
And touches your life
in more ways than you can imagine.
You want more tech,
more speed,
more convenience, more entertainment, more business solutions. And gives you all that and so much more. And go for more.
Parents teach their children to talk, to walk, to ride, to read. So why not teach them about managing their money? Introducing the all-new Live Light app, designed to teach 8 to 18-year-olds good money habits. A free and totally secure app designed for them that's always under your control. Top up their cards, set limits, assign tasks, and reward them with allowances. Download the LiveX app to open a Live Light account in minutes, and the first 50 dirham allowance is on us. Visit live.me today. Live Digital Bank by Emirates NBD. Trust and innovation combined. T's and C's apply.
Money Majlis is brought to you by Intellect Design Arena. Intellect drives digital adoption in banking and insurance. Leverage emac.ai, the most comprehensive, composable, and intelligent open finance platform for banking and insurance transformation. Intellect Design Arena.
and touches your life
in more ways than you can imagine.
You want more tech,
More speed.
more convenience, more entertainment, more business solutions. And gives you all that and so much more. And go for more.
Money Majlis is brought to you by Network International, the Middle East, and Africa's digital payments champion. We make business happen and economies prosper by simplifying commerce and payments. Trusted by over 250 banks, fintechs and telcos, and 130,000 merchants in over 50 countries. Bringing you tomorrow's payment solutions today.
Welcome back. On Money Majlis today, we are talking to Zain Verjee, fearless journalist, inspired entrepreneur, and a bridge between continents and ideas. Zain, what's your view on the evolution of TV journalism in the age of social media and AI? Are journalists today more vulnerable or more empowered?
Great question. I think there is the greatest danger in the world lurking in the evolution of journalism here, which is the advent of mis and disinformation. I think this is a threat to the world. It constitutes one of the greatest challenges of our time, and it brings great journalists and wonderful journalism organizations to their knees when mis and disinformation starts to spread like wildfire, and it is an extremely dangerous and difficult thing to manage. Mis and disinformation are different. Misinformation is somebody sends you something on your WhatsApp and you have some kind of an emotional, you agree with it, and you just send it around and around and around.
Yeah.
You're spreading misinformation. Disinformation is evil actors coming in and creating all sorts of havoc, trying to destabilize a state because of the kind of materials that's being put out. I think never before in journalism has making a story been so easy, but I think never before has it been so hard to tell a story that is received in the way that it's intended. When I was at CNN, there was CNN and BBC, and these were the stalwarts. And there wasn't social media, and people couldn't create content off a phone. It was just like, it was like an appointment with the evening news. This is the news, and it's serious, and this is what happened, right? And the evolution, I think, has been good because it's challenged the old schools. It has empowered people to question and to research and check stories and offer other perspectives. But it's also been dangerous because then now we're arguing over what is real and what's truth. And was that video shot or not shot? And so we get into the evolution is really now around technology and how do you stamp data and metadata and validate material coming in. And, it's almost like you're in an intelligence agency where video and audio is coming in and you're trying to decide, is this real? Is that true? Is that doctored? Is that the right voice? How do we discern all of this? What are our new standards and practices to develop? Also, consumers have changed their habits. I mean, I actually don't even watch, I to myself, I'm not watching the way I used to present, right? I'm getting my news and information from other places. I tend to follow people I trust. I want more perspective than reporting. And I think that the ideal and principle of journalism is valid and more important than ever in the world today. I think there are amazing journalists at networks doing great stuff. But I think the challenges are gigantic as budgets are shrinking. And the advent of AI is transforming a lot of this, not just from the content production side, but also from the news gathering and news process of production and reporting. It's impacting the back end of that too.
In a recent graduation speech, Zain, you said that, quote, a commitment to truth, tenacity, and bold resolve in chasing the story is a must, unquote. Now, we know the trust in media is at historic lows today, and honestly, I personally don't know which TV channel to trust. In the post-Trump era, how do communicators rebuild public trust, particularly in such polarized societies that we're seeing today across the world? What is your recommendation?
I think there has to be a greater maturity and on the side of audiences. Audiences have a right to be skeptical and also understand that the reporter is delivering a perspective, and it's not the only perspective; it's a perspective, and it's not the voice of God. And this is it. We are critical thinkers, and we need to be a little bit more engaged with the kind of stories and news and information that we are producing. And on the journalism side, I think that I hold individual journalists in greater regard now than organizations themselves. And the relationship that I build now as a viewer, like you, with reporters that I watch or follow. And they're not even just reporters; they may be just people with perspective that I like and respect. Whether it's in news or in business, I establish those kinds of trusted relationships. So I think consistency, critical thinking, transparency is really important. So if I say, look, this building blew up, and you go, well, I don't believe the building blew up, I now, as a journalist, have to demonstrate a little bit of more of a chain of custody, a little bit more of transparency. Like, how did I get here?
Yeah.
Right. And if you trust me, and you're a critical thinker too, then a relationship of trust has a foundation. But if I'm arguing with you on what is truth, right, then it's very difficult to have a civilized conversation, which is why when we're so polarized in the world and we just don't even hear what the other person's saying, because if the world doesn't look like the way I think it should, then it's not true. Becomes very difficult to have a civilized conversation, which is why, in Trump's America, and then not just there, in many places around the world, civil society can disintegrate because some basic tropes that make a civil society are under fire.
Just shifting gear now, Zain. With Rouse, a women's leadership initiative that you co-founded, you brought African women together in Marrakesh in 2019. How did that experience articulate your vision of leadership and diaspora connection? And how do you think the role of women in media and global society has shifted since you started out?
Rouse was intended to be a convening event and a gathering of African women in the diaspora, and African American women. They are very different from African women.
Yeah.
Okay, but there was no forum for these three types of groups to come together in commonalities and difference, but just as strong, powerful women leaders in their own right that were doing incredible things. And powerful groups and communities of women endorse and advocate and support each other. And and Aisha Sase, my former colleague at CNN, was the co-founder who drove a lot of the wonderful thinking around this. We had Chidi, my co-founder Chidi, and my prior years, and a wonderful woman called Sunita. Four of us built that with this vision that there should be a safe space, not on camera, not a massive event, but of these really incredible women doing amazing things, and to build this kind of a bond, which I'm happy to report since 2019. They're all my sisters. They've helped me across very tough times. They're incredible women doing the most amazing things and changing the world. So for us to know each other, for us to support each other, and for us to fund, advocate, elevate one another is really important, as women of color. And I think that community becomes a very powerful force in the world, because I can tell you that, just the firepower in that room was something over the 2 days that we did in Marrakesh. The latter part of your question regarding women today, I think there are even greater opportunities for women in media today. that's because media has changed. It's not so exclusive, right? If you are an intelligent person with a good iPhone or a not so good Android phone, you can still make your voice heard. You have the opportunity of all the technology around you. There's a democratization of content. There are way more opportunities for you to be heard, or to figure out some creative ways to make yourself be heard amid all the noise, because now you can. In terms of things like, discrimination and women in senior positions, I think that exists, definitely. And you have less women at senior positions and less women in media boardrooms. And I think that that's a problem. And I think that, we need to just keep advocating and speaking for each other and recommending one another to higher positions. But I think as a young Muslim woman from Kenya going to Atlanta, I really received a lot of goodwill from my whole country in Kenya, from the entire Asian community of Kenya and the world, and from great champions on the other side in Atlanta, in Washington, D.C., New York, and London, and many of whom were Jewish men who had advocated for my career and other women. And so I'm always aware that whatever I've accomplished has not been done alone.
On that point, Zain, your career as a female anchor in a male-dominated field inspires many. What advice do you have for women aspiring to leadership roles amid ongoing gender gaps, where women earn 23% less globally as per World Bank figures?
I would say that women should know that what you have to offer is unique, important, and has a place in the world to be heard. There are very many men who are not qualified for certain positions, who shouldn't be in leadership roles, who shouldn't be in certain spaces, but they're very confident about it. When asked, can you do it? They brashly and confidently say, yes, we can. And we women tend to be like, oh, I don't know. I don't have the experience. I have to learn a bit more. I don't like the apology anymore, because when we can step into the role, we'll work harder than anyone to make sure that we can deliver in that role.
Yes.
And so I would say that's one. And the other, I believe in the amplification of women's by other women. It doesn't always happen. It sounds good. And, it doesn't always happen in corporate environments. But where you find community and friendship with women in boardrooms or in newsrooms or in any corner of your workspace, advocate. If you have an idea, speak up, and then have the other women in the room advocate for that, what you just said, and have that gather momentum, because that's how ideas gather momentum, and that's how you elevate women's voices. I think the Obama administration at one time, actually at all times, had a majority of women around the cabinet table. And I think Susan Rice, Samantha Power, Gail, they all, Gail Smith, they all made a pact. If one of us said something around the table, the other ones, amplify it. Because when a guy comes in and then says something, then everybody forgets it was the woman's idea, and now it's the guy, like it's his thing. And so I remember reading a Washington Post story about it, and then I thought, I'm going to take that lesson, and when I hear a great idea by another woman around me, I'm going to amplify it. And for me, it's not just been around a table; it's been on a global stage. It has been, for example, first ladies, heads of state. They're like, the first lady cut some ribbons or whatever. But there are some incredible first ladies in Africa, who do really profound, interesting things. So why do we only want their husbands on stage? They should also be on stage talking about some important things in a country. So we want to elevate those voices. So I feel very strongly about that. And so I feel that women have access to new knowledge with artificial intelligence, ability to learn. There's no need to be shy or apologetic or fear of failure or think that you're unqualified or there's this whole ridiculous imposter thing, because that we just do that to ourselves. And so having a strong community of women and men. My father's the most influential person in my life when it comes to gender stuff, as a big advocate in male-dominated environments of the success of women. And he's, and so I think all of what I've articulated is that kind of philosophy of not only of how I've grown up, but what I've experienced. No one is cleverer than you are. They may have just had more experience.
Correct.
Just go get it, and then you'll do it.
As a father of 2 daughters, both of who are professionals, I feel very strongly about what you just said. So it's important that we all amplify women voices across the world. Now, just changing topic, Zain, just to Africa, you say that we need to broaden our perception of the African continent. It's not just a bloc, you say. How do you fight prevailing stereotypes in global media about Africa? And what are the biggest myths about Africa's role in the new global economy that you would like to break on Money Majlis today?
The myths and the stereotypes remain persistent. I mean, they're very difficult to break. That Africa's poor, Africa's corrupt, brackets. That's not untrue, but that's not the only thing. Africa's floods and it's crappy villages and towns, and always ethnic people killing each other, and there's this whole kind of framing of the continent as a homogenous block. And even if you accept it's not homogenous, you don't often realize how much diversity there is on the continent, right? You've got language diversity, you've got ethnic diversity, you've got geographical diversity, you have oral cultures and traditions, and each country and the different languages of Portuguese and then French and Anglophone and Swahili and Kinyarwanda and Arabic North Africa, right? That's just in generalities. We have a history of colonization and the whole degrading and violent scramble for Africa. That legacy and the impact of that is still felt today. So there are complex things and relationships that go on here. And then when we get covered or written about, or somebody invests money and then goes, "Oh, Africa, it was terrible and they were all so corrupt," and brackets, that's true. Okay, I'm not whitewashing here. Okay, but that shouldn't be the lens through which we should be perceived, right? We are incredibly talented. The average age in this continent of 1.3 billion people is 19. We are a young, vibrant, connected, innovative continent that are going to solve the problems not only of the continent but of the whole world. Look at M-Pesa and mobile money. That's come from this country, Kenya.
Yeah.
Right? There are many innovations across the continent. There are many, AI is a multi-trillion-dollar business on the continent. We are sick of being exploited for our data, for our research data, for our mineral wealth, and we're not just. So come on a good safari and go to the beach, and that's Kenya. We are a very complex and beautiful, multi-layered continent. We have our fights within. We have lots of leadership egos within. And we understand what opportunities we have here. We have some big problems like electricity and connectivity, but because we have problems, we have so many problems. We are very clever and innovative about how do we actually sidestep these infrastructure issues? How can we innovate around it? And so the richness and the opportunity that exists across a vast continent is immense. And if somebody wants to come to Africa, you have to have a stomach, okay? It's not one size fits all. We appreciate when people coming from outside want to co-create and be our genuine partners, not to dictate because you gave us money, to really try to understand our cultural intelligence, which is also what in my company that we try and this is my little bit of a moat,
Yep.
right? Like we understand, like you got to come in, and even on a communications positioning, you need to understand our environment a little bit and respect it. Yeah. Okay, I'll get off my soapbox now.
No, just moving topics. Moving to your role as an executive fellow at Harvard's D3 Institute, you are deeply involved in AI and digital design. In your mind, then, what is going to be the most profound impact of AI on humanity, on society, and on culture?
The most profound impact is that we are going to solve problems that were never thought possible. We are going to acquire such a superpower that will supercharge each and every one of us in such a profound way that will be transformative for the world. At the same time, there's a danger of people being left behind and a danger of inequity around AI. And these are some of the things that the Tech for All lab that I work with, Rembrandt Koenig, who runs that lab, and Karim Lakhani, and Jen Stave, who established the Digital Data Design Institute, are working on those kinds of issues. At the core of some of the work that I do with those guys is around how do you use generative AI in an entrepreneurial environment with small and medium-sized businesses to scale revenue? How do you scale your business using Gen AI? And one day there'll be the one person with some connectivity, their laptop, and all these AI tools that will build $1 billion business. And how are we going to get there? And where is it going to come from? I'm going to vote here and say, and on the record on your podcast, that it will come from Africa. Just mark my words. That first $1 billion business will come from here. And so it's a moment in time that has been equated to the discovery of electricity. If you thought about how when electricity first happened, if we can say that, how did we know all the different ways that electricity would be applied in the world and how it transformed everything? This is that moment. Like, we don't even know how transformative this is going to be, but we know it's big. But we're like, when the internet, when the internet came along and we got emails, we were like, okay, yeah, this is okay, this seems okay. But it was utterly transformative. This is a moment more than that. And I think that there's a lot of ethics that needs to come with this. There's again a lot of danger that can come with this, security and many issues associated with cybercrime, and but the train has left the station, and if you're not with it, you're going to be left out of it.
Yes, in fact, you warned in interviews then that people who don't use AI will be replaced by people who do. Now, tell me, how should TV journalists today adapt to AI in newsrooms, especially in terms of ethics and accuracy?
I think newsroom systems need to be re-established and redefined. There are some core aspects of the process in a newsroom that won't change, right? Those are editorial judgments. Those are, how do you gather the news? How do you deliver the news? Why is this news? What are innovative ways to break news with strong teams that we have? How do we use technology to build trust with our audience, not to reduce trust? I think that the apparatus that exists around the key aspects or the kind of foundations, that doesn't change, but the way we do it is going to change. If anyone is resisting now, they're not gonna withstand it. The kind of news and information infrastructure that needs to be set up for a newsroom of the future is critical. For example, am I a writer of the future, or am I analyzing data to tell you which story is true, which story is false, and then what is my prompt that will generate news copy for me to give the human in the loop editor to read, and then give to my either avatar anchor to deliver the news, right? So if newsrooms are too precious, that we're the news, we don't do AI, which is what I hear from a lot of my friends. I think it's short-sighted. I think building ethical standards and practices and style playbooks of how do we as a news organization deal with new technology is important. And news organizations and labs are looking at this and how to introduce in a newsroom environment. The problem with new technology is that you have the early aggressive adopters like me. I'm just like, oh, I'm all in. I don't care. Like, let's go. Right. And then I can learn along the way what the risks are. Then you have the people that are going to wait in a newsroom to see what's going on. Maybe I'll dip my toe. And then there'll be the others that are like, this is the end of news. This is, as we know it, this is not okay. And so really, I think for leaders in newsrooms, it's about creating those balances and defining new careers and roles within a newsroom that we haven't even probably created, because technologies that can be disruptive or that can be empowering to newsrooms may not have been invented yet. So I think the entire lens needs to shift and the script needs to flip.
Now, Zain, you have emphasized character over credentials. You say use integrity as your guide, humility as your virtue, excellence is your choice. I love that quote. What leadership qualities, in your view, are most needed today for people in general, but specifically for journalists and communicators?
I'm a very strong advocate in leading with empathy. If you approach things in a clinical fashion, you can achieve things, but you don't have the human connection that you need to go further. I think that when you demonstrate some kind of a connectedness with any individual that you encounter as a leader, you want to understand who they are and where they want to be. And it's your job to elicit the very best out of that person in order to make them greater than even what they thought they would be capable of doing. That's a mark of a good leader. And you can't know what that is if you don't take some time, if you don't truly listen or try to understand with empathy, but also, with stern leadership qualities when necessary. You're not going to be able to elicit the very best of that person. I think I've succeeded, or I will have succeeded one day when teams around me were nurtured and led in a way that was not only transformative to their life, but transformative to their environment or their communities around them. And that, to me, is what leadership is. It's about the kind of relationship that can change a paradigm for an individual, for a community, or a country.
That's a very good thought. Very well said, Zain. And it's a very good spot for us to conclude this interview. But before we wrap up, Zain, I want to lighten things up a little bit and have a rapid fire round with you. Some quick answers to some personal questions, okay? Deeply personal questions. Okay. Well, let's start.
I knew I should have hung up at that point.
What's the first news headline that you remember reading?
I do remember it. It was about Yasser Arafat and the Israeli-Palestine story.
DJ or anchor? The job that requires more adrenaline.
DJ.
Really? The stress about what to play next, is it? Okay, the best piece of bad love advice that you gave on Love Lines, if you remember that.
I actually distinctly remember a young woman had called at 12:30 a.m. one evening and was crying hysterically and said, I've gotten pregnant and I don't know what to do with my baby. Should I keep it or should I have an abortion? And in my wisdom at 22, I had a clear opinion and I was like, you should keep it. And she said, but I have all these reasons why I shouldn't. And I said, just keep it. When you make a decision, things will unfold to support that decision that you never knew. So keep it. And thank you very much. Goodbye. Next caller. Many, many, many years later, I'm now at CNN. I'm on holiday in Nairobi. I've gone out to a dinner somewhere and people are talking to me at the end. And this one young woman is standing on a corner and I see her out of the corner of my eye. And I'm like, oh God, I want to go home now. But I see her, she's waiting. she came up to me and she said, I want to thank you for something. And I said, okay, really nice to meet you. Great. Yeah, tell me. And she was like, you told me to keep my baby when you were at Capital FM, and I wanted to thank you. And here he is. And she brings, there's this little boy standing there with her. And like, how can I forget that? That you don't realize the impact of your words sometimes on people.
What a touching story. Tell me, do you prefer Nairobi street food or New York pizza?
Nairobi street food.
Any day? If you could interview any historical figure, who would it be and why?
It would be Rumi.
Okay.
Because I would want to understand the genesis of the beauty of language like that and the ability to endure loss with such lyrical beauty.
What's your funniest on-air blooper from your CNN days?
Yeah. Did you look? I don't want to get all like X-rated over here, but if you go on Google, there are two very clear bloopers. One when I was on the Situation Room with Wolf Blitzer, and I was talking about American Airlines now are serving peanuts, Peanuts, peanuts. But I could not pronounce that word correctly a few times. And so I think that was probably the biggest blooper I've had. And that happened one of my very early move to Washington, D.C. And then subsequent to that on-air moment, I would be trying to be serious around Washington, trying to prove myself as a new correspondent, and I'm foreign policy, and I'm covering State Department. I would often get these little side jokes thrown at me where someone would give me a tray of peanuts and say, hey, would you like?
So you never could live out of that, yeah?
No, I didn't, and I still don't.
Okay, favorite Kenyan dish that you cook yourself?
It would be ugali and beef curry.
Okay. And finally, Zain, one word to describe the future of media.
The one word I would describe would be transformational. Because nothing that we see today is what we're going to see. And nothing that we do today is going to be what we do. But what will remain solid is going to be the ethic of journalism and the few privileged and strong personalities that insist that the ethics and the foundations of what the entire idea of journalism will endure. And that is the Fourth Estate, calls truth to power and represents the voice of people, and does it in an ethical, principled manner with social good at the core. That is beneficial to humanity, and also that frames the world in a way that builds bridges and that is not divisive.
Zain Verjee, thank you so much for sharing your insights, your experiences, and most importantly for me, your authenticity. Your emphasis on reinvention, on ethical leadership, on AI and inclusion, I think sets a new standard for media personalities. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much for having me. And thank you so much for being the best host that has truly and genuinely pinpointed and observed all the key moments and turning points and flashpoints of my career trajectory. So thank you.
And thank you, Zain. We look forward to seeing you in Dubai soon, face to face.
Okay, I promise.
And to our listeners, be sure to follow Zain's work through theZVG, her writings, and her speaking engagements. And don't forget to subscribe and share your thoughts on this episode. Email me on suvo@moneymajlis.com. Follow me on social media for updates and tune in next time for more thought-provoking discussions at the crossroads of money, technology, and the world. And don't forget to log in to moneymajlis.com to get your free $50 gift card and redeem it at a charity of your choice.
Money Majlis is proudly supported by aKoma, the premier crypto-as-a-service provider, now building in partnership with the top financial institutions in the Middle East. Discover more at aKoma.com.
Money Majlis is brought to you by E&, a global technology group.
Money Majlis is brought to you by Intellect Design Arena, driving digital adoption in banking and insurance.
Money Majlis is brought to you by Live Digital Bank, powered by Emirates NBD. Trust and innovation combined.
Money Majlis is brought to you by Network International, the leading digital payments technology company in the Middle East and Africa.
Money Majlis is conceived and scripted by me, Shubho Sarkar. The show is produced by Sabeen Achkar at Podster and is made possible thanks to my sponsors and my partners. My giving partner is Good World. Until next time, goodbye. Stay well and do good.